They described loneliness in the startup and business world as an epidemic, which I thought was quite strong words, bearing in mind we were just out of a pandemic. So I wanted to bring people together in nature, get them into the sea. And I was always saying, if you can control your breath in the cold Irish Sea, control your emotions, control how you respond to people, you can do it at home, you can do it in the boardroom, you can do it in traffic. It was just that little learning curve.
Welcome to Series 2 of the official Young Hunger podcast, a series where we invite back 3 past guests to catch up 1 year on from our last episode. To show progress, growth, what's new with business, new challenges, new levels, new devils, while sailing to new heights. And for our second official guest on the series, we are proud to welcome back Mr Ciaran May. So grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, whatever you fancy, and prepare to be inspired. Because you're watching the official Young Hunger podcast. My name is Michael Burgess, and we present to you Mr Ciaran May.
Hello, my name's Ciaran May of Natural Resilience, and today I have the absolute honour of being a guest on the Young Hunger podcast.
Mr Ciaran May, welcome back to the podcast.
I know, I'm back again. Thank you very much. No, I'm honoured to be asked again.
Part 2, the reason why I actually wanted you on the podcast again, because we're actually doing a new series where we bring back a select few guests that have been on the podcast, and I actually think it was a 17th of June 2023 you were last on.
Wow.
So nearly 2 years ago, and I sort of want so much has happened in between then and now, and every time I'm on Instagram I was telling you off the camera, you come up or something comes up the podcast, the community, your personal life, whatever it is comes up, and we'd love to sort of delve deep into the new challenges, new levels, new devils, and all things that's going on with Mr Ciaran May.
Perfect. I didn't realise it was 2 years ago. And when you had asked me to be on this and you were like, oh, do you want to talk about your recent growth? I actually said to you, are you sure? Am I the person to be on it? Because I don't see that there has been.
Yeah.
But I mean that in a way that I suppose you're never really satisfied with things, are you? I just consistently keep chipping away, and I suppose I have been since June 23 of just chipping away and getting more clear on what I want to do. But I don't consider myself a success or an entrepreneur. I consider myself entrepreneurial, and I'm still trying to build something. But I still see myself actually as a startup, and at the very beginning of my business journey, and it works for me to have that mindset, I think, as opposed to being complacent.
Just starting off things, we're in the Juice Jar.
Yeah.
Why did you choose here to shoot your episode?
So the guy that owns all the Juice Jars, Sam Shepherd, is a friend of mine. I met him probably 2023. We went to an Ireland rugby match. We clicked, got on like a house on fire, kept in contact. I was actually away in Liverpool with him that weekend, and he's just opened up a 7th juice jar in Dawson Street in Dublin. And
it's amazing, isn't it?
It's class. So I don't have a bricks and mortar business. My business is digital, but it facilitates real life meetups. I no longer have a bricks and mortar business, so I kind of thought city centre. I love the values of Juice Jar, and it's all about good food, health, well-being.
Yeah,
I think it's in alignment with everything I stand for. And Sam thankfully let us use his office here in the city centre Juice Jar. So yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I was actually looking back over our first episode, and just before we really get into it, there was actually a couple of quotes of yours. I think there's 3, and I really want to run them past you because I feel like they had definitely a big effect on my life. And there's some, even like the first one here, it says, do what sets your soul on fire. And you mentioned that, and I actually took that away and really thought about it. And if I ever feel lost or confused, always sort of find myself reverting back to what sets my soul on fire.
Yeah.
And I feel like any friends or family members that come to me being like, oh, I don't know what to do here. The advice I would give is do what sets your soul on fire. And weirdly enough, the path sort of opens up.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean? And that's for me, that was like, wow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just different feeling. The other one was civil service you started in.
Yeah.
You were there for 11 years.
11 years.
You were saying there how you were growing up, the imagination and creativity was sort of restricted and capped, and you wanted to contribute to society, be of service, and leave a lasting legacy. Do you feel like you're doing that or pursuing that, or?
I feel I'm pursuing it. I don't know if I'm doing it. I'm certainly pursuing that. I think like those, for me, those two things are interlinked in terms of set your soul on fire and being of service and of impact to the world. I think, you feel in your gut when you're on the right path. I think you know when you're in the wrong environment. I think when you're in a wrong relationship or the wrong business. Like, sometimes you don't have the courage to express it, but I feel as if I'm on the right path, but I do feel I'm at the early stages of it. But certainly at the end of my life, I'd love to look back and reflect and say I did something. I helped some people. I maybe, guided some people or walked their path with them for a few short steps. I think the thing with life is a big thing for me in terms of that, set your soul on fire. What it means to me is that life is finite. So the average life expectancy in the UK and Ireland is 80. So no matter what you do or who you try to be or who you pretend to be, the game of life finishes one day. You know, whether we like to admit it or not. In fact, that you get to your 80s, you've had a good innings. So when I kind of made peace with death, so to speak, in terms of like, this is over, I suppose I started trying to live better, thinking, well, it's all over one day. So instead of worrying about what this person thinks of me or wondering about how this is perceived, so long as I'm true to myself and my values and doing things for me, trying to light myself up, then I'm okay with that. And I have to have faith that the right people will come and go, whilst I'm on my own journey. But in a really healthy way, I've just became very clear on my own path and doing things for me.
That's bound to rub off on like your son, daughter, and missus and family and things.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I mean, I hope so. I'm trying to remain authentic to my values and to my vision and my goals. Again, like, you're always trying to improve as a father or a husband. I think the day you say I'm great, you become complacent. So in terms of parenting, I couldn't lace my wife's shoes. Like, she is a great parent. I supplement in many ways, but I like to have conversations with my kids. And I mentioned to you off camera, I bring my son to all his trainings and his matches, but you're standing in the winter and it's cold, you're under an umbrella, but he sees me. And that's important to me, that he just sees me there. And I hope as he progresses in life, he kind of looks back and go, well, my dad was there. He was there for me.
Which is massive.
It's
Dividends,
huge.
isn't it? Yeah.
It's huge. And this is the thing, that young boy, like, we intend that we look at that person, but he will be my age one day. And I kind of look at how I process things, and, people have came and went into my life, and he will be thinking the same ways when he's near 40, and I hope that he can say, well, my dad was always there. I heard a great quote the other day that your dad is the only man in the world that wants to see his son do better than him. And I most definitely do. Like, and Jack will surpass me in every single way. Him and his sister are special kids.
I think it's kind of cool the way, like, even filming podcasts, you nearly have like a digital diary of you as a person. He can look back at this in 10, 20 years, whatever it is, and be like, oh, my dad said this. And then, you know what I mean? It's sort of pretty mad. The other last one I was going to say to you was, and this is something else, doing the podcast, I found that really, really helped me is, he says, I used to put people on pedestals. Successful people are no different from us or from the addict in the flat around the corner. Success comes down to consistency, making better choices on a daily basis. And I feel like I could probably really, really originate with that, because whenever you're talking to people, I'm sure you're the same on the podcast and things, you are putting people on a pedestal. Look what they've done, look what they've accomplished. It's mental, but at the same time, everyone's on the same level. Do you know what I mean?
I still stick by that, and it's not to be disrespectful to everyone. I admire a lot of people. There's people that you can learn from, and there's people that you can unpack their life experience and definitely learn from it. But putting somebody on a pedestal is much different from doing that. And I always say, be a people person, but not a people pleaser. I think sometimes when you put people on pedestals, you try and please them. You're trying to get some form of validation from them. You want them to accept you into their circle. Whereas I think if you remain true to yourself, again, it's a very important thing, that authenticity piece. It's not about putting people on pedestals. It's about meeting people where they're at and where you are, and allowing time for trust and connection to unfold and take place.
Did you ever find yourself being a people pleaser early on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I suppose, I think we naturally do. We naturally do, and it's, I mentioned to you off camera about getting much more better than saying no to people. I struggled with saying no to people, especially at those early days where you've the mindset, I just need money into the business to make it work, cash flow. So you say no to talks you've no real interest in. You're saying yes to a lot. And what I found through a bit of experience is I was going home exhausted to the people that matter most to me.
Yeah.
And so how I've made peace with that is when I'm saying no to somebody, I know I'm saying yes to something else. So if you're asking me to go for a beer after this, I'm now confident to say, no, Michael, and I'm not saying no for no sake, but I'm saying yes because I'm going home. We have plans this weekend with the family. And so it's probably just getting better, more confident to say no, but being able to articulate and communicate why.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm being ignorant to you, but I'm saying yes to something over here. And it just really, that done a lot for me, just being able to frame things that way.
I feel like saying no is a superpower.
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
Yourself.
Yeah, so I think just having a vision of where you want to go and why you want to go there, that your why becomes your South Star, your vision becomes your North Star, your values are kind of should keep you in line, but ultimately distractions take place. There's a lot of information, a lot of noise out there. And for me, what has kept me in my own lane is just the ability to say no, and if you don't say no, you're pulled in too many directions. And that's overwhelming to me. And it's tiring. And so, yeah, I think that it's such a small word, but it can have such a big impact on your life.
Yeah, it's actually so interesting now speaking to you after knowing you, because I feel like the first time only really started to get to know you.
Yeah.
And now I can sort of me and Ross especially call you a friend, and it's a pleasure to have you back. But if someone was watching this and hasn't heard of Ciaran May, tell me a little bit about who you are and what you're about and things.
So probably best known as the owner of Natural Resilience in terms of the social media side of things.
Yeah.
But that's not me. There's no Ciaran May Instagram. It's Natural Resilience. The social media is used as a marketing tool for my business. That's it. It doesn't define me. It's not even an expression of me. It's an extension of my business, and it's a marketing tool. And I'm very, very strict about that. I schedule all my posts to go out. I probably spend less than an hour per week on social media. Again, I think it's healthy. But beyond all that, I'm a father, a husband, quite a simple man. I don't lead an extravagant lifestyle. I swim in the sea in the morning, which I love. That's kind of been part of my life for the past 5 or 6 years. I have a great wee small circle of close friends. I have a small close family. And outside of that, I love spending time in nature. And I'm probably quite boring, to be honest with you. I like reading. I read a lot of books. Natural resilience is, I suppose, a philosophy of mine that you need to have resilience in this life, whether you like to admit it or not. And I try to, because of my own experiences, bring that to the table. Because I think a lot of social media, and particularly modern social media and influencers, people can fall for the trap that growth is linear, or that you can start a YouTube channel within 6 months you're making millions. But life isn't a straight line. There's the ups and downs, there's the peaks and valleys, and for me to navigate that requires an awful lot of resilience, because you can have all these great plans, but life happens. Like, we had a death in the family this week at an event where a speaker pulled out, and what do? Do you become a slave to circumstances and your emotions? Or I kind of love stoicism, where control the controllables, and it's trying to get people to, I suppose, instill that resilience within themselves and that self-awareness. And I do that probably through unconventional means. Take people into the sea, take people up mountains. I would do well-being retreats for business owners and CEOs, and a bit of coaching, and kind of, I suppose, getting people through a community to do the same, to support each other on that little growth journey. But it's all about resilience, connection, the real human piece that I think we flirted with losing that over COVID. And so I'm really passionate about bringing that back into the mainstream.
Talk to me a little bit about the community, the rising tide and things, because ever since the last time we talked to now, outside looking in, looks like it's just completely skyrocketed.
So the Rising Tide Network was started early stages of COVID, when we were allowed to come back out again. So it was about taking 25 business owners each time and getting them into the cold sea. And the tagline was, leave your stress in the sea. Because I suppose, well, the UK, the Irish and the American government in and around that time said, well, as we come out of COVID, they described loneliness in the startup and business world as an epidemic, which I thought was quite strong words, bearing in mind we were just out of a pandemic. So I wanted to bring people together in nature, get them into the sea. And I was always saying, if you can control your breath in the cold Irish Sea, control your emotions, control how you respond to people, you can do it at home, you can do it in the boardroom, you can do it in traffic. It was just that little learning curve. Since we last spoke, Crawfordsburn has branched out into different locations. So we now do that Ballygally, Middlester, Splash this weekend with the first one in Fermanagh. And it's not about me, so it's now getting other hosts to come in and do those. My goal over the next few years is to bring 10,000 business owners to the cold water, to the nature, through different locations and different means.
How did you find, how would you find delegating your
I love
business?
it. Yeah, I love it.
Did you ever find that challenging?
No, honestly, like I would love to say I struggle with giving it up. I'm the opposite. I want to give as much up as possible. It's just about getting the right people. So Matt Stevenson has taken over Crawfordsburn, and that wasn't challenging at all. I knew him. He actually does a far better job than me, to be honest with you. Matt is fantastic. I know if I don't delegate, I run the risk of burnout. And if I am burnt out, I then appear like a fraud, because I'm telling everyone else that, yes, perform at a high level, yes, grow your business, yes, improve here, but we need to have the well-being element, or else so if I'm burnt out, if I'm preaching about well-being, I'm going to look fraudulent. So I have to practice what I preach. And I think every time I go through challenging times, I've kind of said to myself, well, what a lovely way for me to embody my own message, natural resilience, or if I've too much on my plate, I say, what a lovely time to kind of delegate and practice the well-being bit. So no, I actually want to delegate more out. I took on my first full-time staff member as of last year. And obviously there's your balance in kind of taking staff on and building a team with cash and cash flow. So still trying to navigate that, but I would like to have, for example, somebody running the community for me, maybe somebody coming in and taking over the marketing and the event side of things. But I would love to, I know what I'm good at, I know where I get my biggest return, I know what sets my soul on fire. So I'm trying to delegate as much as possible outside of that really, I suppose, narrow piece of my business, which I'm good at, because I'm not so good at a lot of it.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty good awareness of knowing what you're good at and what you're maybe not so good at, and delegating the bits you're not so good at, and as you say.
Yeah, but kind of if I will, I suppose, take some time every Sunday evening, maybe an hour tops, and I'll kind of reflect on my week and plan the week ahead. But I have at the top of the page, I'll write do, delegate, automate. So I will try and pick 3 to 5 things that week that I know if I do those 3 to 5 things, I'm moving the needle within my business, and I know I'm the best person to do those. It's not Catherine, it's not, automations, it's me. It's usually person-centric, it's usually delivering something for a company or winning new work.
Yeah.
Then there'll be more of maybe 10 to 20 things that I know I can delegate to somebody. And if that's, mocking up graphics for an event, if that's uploading stuff on the Eventbrite, sending emails, scheduling social media posts. And then there's the bit that I go, okay, how can I use technology to do this for me? Can I schedule, a month's worth of emails or whatever it may be? So
I think what you said before actually was really interesting, how like you barely share anything. It's the community that shares.
Yeah.
And they just like, I had a great day down in Crawfordsburn, wherever it is. Yeah. And next thing you know, I see it from members and things. It's fascinating.
So there's, if you go back to January, for the first time I probably realised what I was doing. I was doing this unintentionally, I was doing it unconsciously, but again, I don't want to be a social media influencer. I'm not a content creator, I'm a business owner. And I think a lot of people get mixed up between that. I think a lot of people think if I have 100,000 followers, I'm going to make a lot of money. I don't care about the followers. I want to make a good impact and make a profitable business and grow that. So I know who I am and I know what I'm not. And so I don't want to be on Instagram all day, every day. But if you look at the Find Your Tribe event in January, 300 people went to the Europa Hotel, bought a ticket for it. If you go back through my feed, there's probably 5 posts max on that. And, 1 or 2 of them, in fact, more, was like, here's where it is, here's the host. I wasn't on stories blabbering about it, but the community supported it. And I remember thinking, this is working. This is working, that I don't have to spend so much time feeling as if I'm swimming upstream with social media and in stories, putting on accents and trying to be really happy when really the kids are running about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was the community. It was the fact that I had served them for the past year, and I'd kind of went above and beyond for them. And I think that's where it's at, is being of service to other people, and it always comes back.
I feel like it's pretty mental. Like the fulfillment in that must be absolutely paramount. You know,
it's backed by science. Like Google brought a really interesting kind of study out recently, that 7-11-4, where they looked at why people buy things, and so obviously they're using all their kind of data behind the scenes. So on average, people need to see 7 hours worth of your content across 11 different touch points and on 4 different locations. And so to put that in simplified terms, I would need to have 7 hours worth of reels, which are what, a minute a night? Like, that's a lot of reels. That's like a year's worth of reels. 11 different touch points. So that's like, you know, they've seen it on Monday on Instagram, they've seen it on LinkedIn, they've seen it on Facebook, they've seen it in email, they've seen it on stories. And then 4 different touch points is maybe, you know, on their computer. And I kind of thought, I don't have the time or interest for that. I do not want to have I don't care about reels, certainly to try and get somebody to buy a ticket to something for that. So I would do a lot of in-person events. I would do a lot of, for the community, we try and have a monthly meetup. So networking events, swimming events, whatever. And if you think of it that way, I'm taking them on a journey. If they're with me for 3 hours on a Thursday night in a networking net, well, there's half of the 7 hours done.
Yeah.
And if they're with me again, so I think that's why the community is built into it, because I'm there, I'm always there, I'm consistent, I'm supportive. If anyone needs help, I'm helping. I don't need to take selfies with them. I do it quietly behind the scenes. I make sure they feel as if they know that I'm trying to promote them, support them, guide them. And it then, I suppose, comes back when I do bigger events where they're like, okay, this guy's been here for me and I want to be in here for him. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It's very flattering that because when you start something like that, don't get me wrong, at the start I remember thinking, because it was started in the cost of living crisis, and I know kind of I grew up in a housing estate, and you know, I don't want to say we were poor because everything's relevant, but there was certainly no luxuries or like add-ons or bolt-ons. So I know that a lot of small business owners can't afford fancy mentoring or fancy coaching, or you know, they maybe can't afford even an online course or something. So I started this. It was less than £1 per day. It was like 20 quid a month. And at the start, I remember thinking, I'm giving a lot here. Like, I was booking hotels and doing like networking events and different. It was costing me money. Now we've got enough members in it that it's making some money, and we can put on the events. But I remember at the start thinking, God, you know, I need to make this work very quick, or else it could bite me in the arse. But thankfully, it's worked and it's working. We've been able to keep it, like, it's still less than £1 per day. But I love it. I really do love it. I've met some amazing people, and so just the connections, like the connections that are made, the business that is being done organically, and the friendships that have evolved is
that sets your soul on fire.
100%.
Yeah. What would be your biggest lesson? Is there something, one in particular, if you can narrow it down to, from what you've learned from building this community? Is that
the community matters. Like that's it. I think that sense of belonging is really, really powerful.
Yeah.
People want to belong to something in this day and age, especially off the back of COVID. People not only want to belong, but they need to belong. They need to belong. Now, don't need to belong to my community, but they need to belong to something bigger than themselves. That's like, history shows you that, you know, going right back to kind of tribal times, to communities, to families. And the thing is, even if you look at like mental health kind of studies, a lot of people describe themselves as being disconnected from the workplace, the family, the tribe, whatever it may be. So that connective piece is very, very important. That's the biggest thing, is that need for belonging. And I think I've reflected on quite a bit in terms of why I'm so passionate about it. I grew up in West Belfast, like late 80s, early 90s. It was during the Troubles. I had a great childhood, by the way. It's not a sob story or anything. I had a great family, but even during those, like the tail end of the Troubles that I witnessed, late 80s, early 90s, what West Belfast and East Belfast and all these working class areas had was a real strong sense of community, like really strong. People left their doors open. Like even on my mum's street now, she's still in the same street. Like you still know all the neighbours and their kids and their grandkids, and people chipped in, people supported one another. So I've always felt that. And then you go to other places and it's not there, and you can see the difference it makes. So I wanted to replicate that strength of community and that strength of belonging to the local business world.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I suppose I'm passionate about the underdog, but outside of the big corporations, there's a lot of small business owners with a lot of great ideas that can help a lot of people, but they maybe don't have the support or intellectual property to do it. And so two things happen. You become really stressed or really lonely, or both.
Yeah.
And so I want to say to them, okay, like you don't need to do this on your own. There's a community here with a lot of expertise. There's marketers, there's people that do sales training, there's people that can help you with this. You can help them with them, but let's get to know each other. Let's support one another. Let's shout about each other.
Yeah.
Let's make it work together. And that, I suppose it's that, just that collaborative piece. I do think collaboration and community is more powerful than competition.
Yeah. What do you think about, I actually seen a statistic the other day, and it was like people feel more lonely now than probably ever on a general.
Yeah.
And it's pretty mad, because if you have your phone, surely you should be, or you would think that you can talk to as many people, your mates, all the time, but it just hasn't been.
Yeah,
especially COVID, working from home.
It's great. That's why the event in January was called Find Your Tribe.
Yeah.
So all the statistics show that, like, I love history. Less than 200 years ago, that's not that long in the grand scheme of things. Less than 200 years ago on the island of Ireland, there was a famine, and 1 million people died in Ireland. And more than 1 million had to leave the Australia and America and London and England and Glasgow. That's like 5 generations. That's your great-grandfather's great-grandfather. Like, that's not that long.
Yeah.
And so we have went from famine and trauma and travesty, and we've got through the Troubles, and then there's like all this technology and AI is introduced to make our lives easier.
Yeah.
And social media and the internet is there to connect us all. And like it was called, what was the world is now a village. Yet people are more disconnected. Social media, people are seeing their friends and families less. Like that's now a statistic as well. People are actually spending less time with their friends and family. I think people are more disconnected than ever. They're glued to their phones, they're glued to devices. They're maybe staring at a screen or laptop all day for work to go home and watch TV. I think we're at a really interesting period in history. I think we need to do something about it. And the reason I, was so passionate about this was there was a young kid that worked in a gym I rented a room in 2019, took his own life. And he, in the group WhatsApp, about 24 hours before he done it, was putting in laughing emojis. Like people were saying, what's the crack? And, kids are now kind of communicating by emojis and communicating by voice notes and Snapchats and Facebooks and WhatsApps. And I'm a firm believer if he had have been in a room or in a table like this with his friends and said, how are you? You can't lie. You can't say, oh, I'm okay. People know. And people know because humans, through their evolution, have been trained to read body language, and you feel words. I can say certain things to you and you will feel it in your gut. You will know if I'm telling you the truth, or you'll be thinking, well, he's maybe not going here with this, because we're human and we're designed that way. And I always think, like, what is the cost of winning at all costs? So we're so focused. Like, technology is meant to make our lives easier, and it does, and it is.
Yeah.
But we have to use it as opposed to it using us. I think that's the key. We need to use this to our advantage, but not let it use us. And I was walking in here, like coming through the city centre, and everyone's just their heads down in their phones, like even crossing roads and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you, if someone wants to get involved with the community and things, how can they go about doing it?
So it's on when I initially started, it was a private Facebook group, because I had no platform, so to speak. And the private Facebook group kind of served its purpose, but it got a bit clunky. It got a bit clunky because the more people joined it, the more information that was shared. You were having to scroll. I met a guy who we both know, Matthew Thompson, who now is high up in a company called Skool, SKOOL. And so I rent like a private social media app type thing off them. It's an American-based company, so the community's on school. So there's a community element, which is like your private LinkedIn. There's the classroom where we'll have like webinars. There's the calendar, and then all that only exists to feed our in-person events. So the community exists. Yes, we want to share like marketers' webinars, but ultimately we want to get you in tables like this and in rooms like this with people. So on my website, my social media, you will find it anywhere. Just type Find Your Tribe. When you click on it, it'll bring you to school. And there's a 7-day free trial because, again, it's not for everyone, you know, and then people might come in and go, oh, it's not for me, or geographical ways, it's too far to travel, but it is for a lot of people. But, you know, you can try before you buy, because ultimately it's not about making money. I haven't changed the price. It's cheap. And if it's not for you, that's fine. But go and find something that is for you.
Yeah. What about, like, I'm just curious, but like, what was your first ever live event like, or how were you feeling whenever?
So my first ever workshop was in 2019 in Crawfordsburn Scout Centre, called like the Natural Resilience Workshop, and 12 people turned up. And actually, I couldn't stand up and speak to them. I cheated. I made a circle and sat in a circle.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my 4th workshop that I had the confidence to stand up and speak.
Yeah.
I'd never spoken publicly before. Now, like, since then, I've spoken in the room with like 1,500 is the biggest audience of. I'm doing TEDx in June, but I started extremely nervous. I'd done those 4. I'd done a couple of small events, and then I spoke at. It was going okay, to be honest with you. It was going. I was doing talks, you know, some decent companies, and then I got asked to speak at. And I'm naturally introverted, so I've done all the personality tests. I like small, intimate conversations. Probably naturally more introverted than extroverted. So for me, it requires energy and effort from me.
Yeah.
But I know it's going to take me to where I want to go, so I've committed to doing it. But I got asked to speak at a guy called Donald Nugent was doing an event in the Culterland in Belfast. You had Michael Conlon speaking on it, Annette Kelly of Little Penny Thoughts, Conor Myler, and Neil, who was the Antrim hurling captain at the time. And I got a bit nervous because the Culterland, the chairs go up, and my family and that were there, and like childhood friends and that. I'd never really spoken to in front of them before, and my mouth got dry. Do you ever see the scene? Is Jim Carrey? He's like cottonmouth. I couldn't speak, and it was horrible. It was a horrible feeling, like nervousness, anxiety. Genuinely could not speak, and I had no water, and the only person that had water was Michael Conlon, and I had to take his water off. I remember thinking he's going to punch me, but I had to take his water and take a drink.
Yeah.
And I went home that night, and like, it was such a gut-wrenching feeling. I was embarrassed. I felt humiliated. Like, I was able to get the talk out, but it was crap, and that felt really uncomfortable. And I went home that night feeling sorry for myself, really licking my wounds, kind of thinking, like, why am I doing the right thing by demanding growth of myself? Like, should I play this easier? Is there easier ways to do it than standing on stage in front of people and putting yourself out there? And then I realized this is where most people give up. You know, this is where most people sit with that uncomfortableness in the body and say, I'm not doing it again. So the week later, I'm speaking in front of 150 people in a hotel, and I just went, if I don't do this, I'll never do it again. And I went and done it. And since that day, I feel as if it's just really progressed. When I made a decision, this isn't going to define me. It was crap. It was horrible, but I'm going to pick myself up and go again.
The Ciaran in 2019, who you were saying can't speak in front of people, to the Ciaran now, who you were saying off camera, like, I don't know how many speaking events you do a month, but what do you think in between that? What do you think was what's changed?
Do you want the true answer? The only thing that has changed is I have just been consistent and kept doing it. Like, there's no aha moment, there's no fancy story. It's literally just a commitment to getting the reps in. That's it. Like, that is it. It's like, I didn't get, you know, coaching training and public speaking. I don't have a big fancy story about this. I just committed in 2019, for September time 2019, and I'm going to start speaking, and I haven't shut up since. but it is literally just a case of like 4 years of getting the reps in. That's it. It's just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Keep doing it and keep doing it. And every time you get better. And after I do a talk, I'll kind of, sit in the car with my phone and make a couple of notes. What went well and where could I improve? That's it. And I'm not too hard on myself, but I'll maybe pick up a couple of things, or maybe engage with the audience a bit here, can maybe use a better slide here, but also acknowledging what went well.
Yeah, I can't even imagine you being shy or being scared to speak, or
yeah. I think I'm a confident person.
Yeah,
but I'm confident because I keep promises to myself, and I have got the reps in. But in like you and I have only met in circumstances like this, where it's either small groups or these types of conversations. I'm very confident because I love that intimacy of human connection. But if you take us into like a huge big networking event, there's a lot of people there, I'm generally quite shy. I love talking, I love people, but when there's too much people and too much noise and too much personalities, I kind of back off a wee bit. But I'm not like your natural public speaker. Like I've probably a style of my own, I've a deep voice, covered in tattoos. I don't fit the mold, and I had to get comfortable with that and just commit to like, just get better, just get better, just get better.
Yeah.
And that's been it really. Just getting the reps in is a powerful thing, I think.
Where do you want to take the community over the next couple of years, say 3 or 4 years? Where's your vision?
So the vision has changed. I kind of probably, with the vision initially, I was like, I made a mistake. And it's not a mistake. It's part of life. It's part of business. But I got fixated on like numbers, and it's like I want 1,000 people in the community, and I wanted to go global. And the reality was I wanted to get from A to C without going through B. And so I'm just kind of getting more. I still want to improve the service. I want to improve it so there's a better customer journey. But over the next 2 years, there's about 150 small local business owners in it. I would like to take it up to 250.
Yeah. And
then I'll probably cap it at that. And just keep that intimate community together. And with regards to natural resilience, I think that's evolving too. I just like to really focus on continuing to improve as a public speaker, work with some huge companies throughout Ireland and beyond, and see where it takes me.
Yeah, I like that because I actually remember you reaching out one day and saying about would you do a talk?
Yeah.
And I remember replying to you being like, thanks very much and everything, but like for me as like a podcast guy who's pretty early on in his journey talking to these successful individuals, I've said I don't actually feel qualified. And then remember you coming back maybe like do it anyway and things, and I did, and I did like all what you were saying about like the nerves and the dry mouth is what I felt. You know what I mean? But
look, so I believe 100% that the universe in some way, shape or form rewards courage.
Yeah,
it always does. Anytime I've made a courageous step in my life, you're rewarded. So I knew that was out of your comfort zone because of conversations we had beforehand. But you'd done it anyway.
Yeah.
And you were rewarded because a couple of months later you met Stephen Bartlett and you went to the Scale X thing, And to me, that's almost like you're always rewarded when I think the universe loves courage.
Yeah. One other thing, just on the networking, you do like the pitch perfect. Yeah. Networking, talking about that.
So that's actually part of the community where once a quarter we'll take 9 members of the community and I'll coach them through like a basic public speaking journey, but more so about a pitch.
Yeah.
And on the night they get 3 minutes to say who they are and what their business does, and they follow a guideline, which is they have their hook, what problem their business solves, the solution that they have, and then a call to action. And I love it because I'm very, very passionate about people standing on stage and speaking their voice. I think as Irish people, Northern Irish people, whatever you want to do, we're very humble, but sometimes we're too humble. And I think we need to speak our voice and speak it confidently. And so I provide that platform for them to do that in a room full of about 50 or 60 business owners. And it's powerful. And, Ross has been there. What's really, really wonderful is those people are clapped up on the stage and they're clapped off. And you can feel the support of the people in that room. It's amazing. So it's the community come out. It's like a members meetup. Really, really powerful. Prior to that, I've been to pitching events where it's very intense. Mostly the tech software kind of tech industry, and they're pitching for investment, which means they're full of nerves. They're in their head. They're thinking, God, the future of my business depends on this.
Yeah.
It's quite a cold atmosphere. It's quite ruthless. Investors sitting in the room, not much. And so I was like, well, I think with entrepreneurship, it's good to break the rules sometimes, break the mold. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do a pitching event. I'm going to do it completely different. Same as the Rising Tide Network. I'm going to do a networking event where we're getting in the sea in a sauna, completely different. And I think that innovation is good. And so long as it's always in alignment with the values of my business, natural resilience, what it stands for, then it will only be a success.
You touched on something earlier about the event a while back in Europa.
Yeah.
And see, when you were standing up on stage talking things and all these people in the room, how did you feel whenever that was?
I actually felt really good. I was nervous all that week. That is probably the most confident I've ever felt on stage, if I'm honest with you.
Why do you think that? Like, what was it?
So that I've started doing a big event every January. That's year 3. It was by far the biggest. The first year was in the Balmoral Hotel, and dry mouth, nerves. The microphone cut out a few times.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to make a few jokes just to buy myself a bit of time, like thinking, oh my God. But I was so proud of myself that night. When I look back now, I was crap, right? I improved on the second year. On the second year, I thought it was amazing. And look back now, I was crap. I felt amazing in January, but I'll know I'll look back next year and go, I was crap. So it's just...
Yeah, the progression,
It's the progression. But you know, a lot of people don't start because they don't want to feel like a fool at the start, but you have to. It's like if you start a new sport, you're going to be crap at it at the start. If you start public speaking, you're going to be crap at it at the start, but that's the beauty of it. You be humble enough to feel like a novice and then you improve.
Yeah.
I think on the run up to the Europa Hotel, there's a lot of moving parts to put on an event of that size. Like there was 300 people, all the tables, there was a VIP bit after, there was a host, a guest speaker pulled out about 5 days to go. So there's a lot of moving parts, and despite me trying to keep calm and quite chill and grounded, I was underneath it all a bit stressed. And the event was on a Sunday. On Friday, I decided I was underprepared. My son had, that week, he had 2 or 3 school open nights to attend. So I was working, and then I was meant to use the evenings to prep a bit, and I didn't get a chance because we had to go as a family to his open night. So I booked into the Europa on the night before, got a bit of last minute prep in, and I actually prayed the next morning and was like, listen, I know I'm an idiot, but see the overthinking, get the thoughts out of my head. I know what I want to talk about. There's slides there that are used as a guide, but I need to speak from the heart during this show. So get the thoughts out of my head and just let me speak. And honestly, I felt so comfortable. Now, I did a wee thing at the start. I knew walking out on the stage, there was the Europa Hotel, we put on we got a Niavac, a big AV company, and the big extra screens and lighting, spotlights, and I knew a lot of my friends and family were in the first row, and I knew that can be quite daunting. So what I did just to ease me into it was Annette Kelly was hosting it. And I said to her, when you call me out on the stage, have a wee back and forth for a bit of crack for between 3 and 5 minutes, just to allow me to get used to the microphone, used to the room, used to the spotlights. And I played smart with that and done that. And once I kind of done, and I got my flow going, Annette seen it and was like, right, I'll leave you to it.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the event, it just kind of, I feel as if it went really, really well.
Yeah. Is that something you do often? Like sort of find that couple of minutes just to find or is that just a one-off
No,
thing?
but I've seen it. So I go to a lot of speaking events. I've said to you, I went to John D. Martini. This whole thing of personal development or whatever name you want to give it, I love it. You know, I want it. It intrigues me. I love the feeling it gives me.
Yeah.
And in November last year, I went to see a guy called Ryan Holiday, who writes the Daily Stoic, and The Obstacle is the Way, and he's an amazing author. He was speaking in the conference centre in Dublin, and I bought a VIP ticket because I wanted to be I love his books, I love him, and he came out before to the VIP bit and started doing a Q&A, and then you could see that he was a wee bit, and then he really found his flow, and then he came back out for the big event, and I remember thinking, that's class. He was coming out, but it makes sense. The footballer comes out onto the pitch and warms up first, you know?
Yeah.
So to come out cold and just straight into a room of 300 people talking on a mic,
yeah,
you need to warm up. And it really worked for me. It really, really worked for me. It's the first time I've done it, and if I could, I would definitely do it again.
You do a podcast as well?
Yeah.
Talk to me how that all came about, because I've seen on Instagram things, you've had some really big guests, Paul Hughes, Ray Peters,
Yeah.
Andrew Trimble.
Yeah. Fronting.
Yeah, how do you find it?
I'm loving the podcasting journey. I love storytelling.
Yeah.
I love that everyone's got a story and there's lessons in the story. So I love the art of storytelling and I love conversations. And so I'm also intrigued by business and marketing. And there's a guy called Daniel Priestley who I love, really good marketer, really intelligent, Australian guy who scaled multiple 7 and 8 figure companies, sold them. So he walks the walk too. And this is the thing, I think there's a lot of noise out there. A lot of people saying, oh, I do this and do that. But I think it's good to follow people and walk the walk and not just talk the talk. He does both. And he did a course with him a couple of years ago online. And he says, if you want to study marketing, study the American election because they use all the techniques before it goes mainstream. So if you look at kind of 4 years ago, they used AI, and that's all we've heard since. And the most recent one where Trump got elected, if you look at it, he was on all the biggest podcasts. He was on Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, like all the biggest podcasts. And when he was on, the viewer ratings were much, much higher than CNN, Fox, ABC, and NBC News. So I remember thinking, I need to bite the bullet. It was something I wanted to do for a while. I just couldn't commit to it time-wise. And I wanted to do it properly. This is the thing, I like to do things properly. When I seen, like him or loathe him, Trump's a smart man and he used that to his advantage. He got an actual fact. There's a lot of people say when he went on the podcast, that's what got him over the line because he got into a different demographic. And there's a lot of mistrust these days, particularly since COVID, around mainstream media. So I know there's a certain generation. My mum, for example, will watch the news every night at 6 o'clock with her tea. So that generation do, and they take BBC, RTE, or whatever as gospel. There's a lot of people now, kind of my generation and younger, are a bit more inquisitive.
Yeah.
Because you've got social media, because BBC could be telling you one thing, but then you're looking on X or whatever it may be, and you're seeing a completely contradictory point of view. And so people start to question things. And I think podcasts, because it's not governed by, like, I've been on BBC before, it's quite strict in terms of what you can say, how you can say it. You're almost given an avenue to go down, whereas podcasts, you can talk about anything, there's no rules. And so on one hand, I knew it was a good thing for my business in terms of, okay, let's do a podcast. On the second hand, I also realized that I could do it organically and authentically as me. I spoke to you off camera. I think the comedians have carved out an amazing niche. I also think there's a lot of people coming in with podcasts and they're chasing like a viral reel and they want the 30-second reel seen by 1 million people. I would rather a really, really good 45-minute conversation because my favorite podcast is the high performance one with Jake Humphries and Damien Hughes. I think they do that exceedingly well. And I'm not saying there's anything right or wrong, but I'm going, what sets my soul on fire? I love that podcast. I want to do it this way. I want to choose my own guests. I want to ask my own questions. Yeah. And it's not about...
It's real. It's real, isn't it?
Me.
Yeah.
It's me. That's, again, all these things. Is this in alignment with my values? Is it in alignment with my vision? Is it in alignment with my why? And I think it comes through when it is.
How do you find asking the questions and then being on as a guest? Do you think there's much of a difference? Do you think there's...
Yeah. So I think with asking the questions, you have to be a bit more flexible in your approach because I've made the mistake where I've thought, okay, I want to ask A, B, and C and it to go this way. But of course they say things that you're not expecting. Yeah. And you have to be very flexible. So there's been some where I've thought this is easy, this is more enjoyable. There's been others that the guest has spoken a different way and I've had to be more flexible and I've thought, God, you actually have to put a bit of effort into this. I know, again, I would consider myself weak as a podcast host because I've only done 5 or 6. But I'm okay with that because I know I want to do at least 100 and I know by the time I get to 100, I'll look back at the first 10 and go, they were crap. Yeah. But that's life and that's growth.
Yeah, and reps.
Yeah, get the reps in. So I haven't given it too much thought in terms of views or subscribers or anything. It's like I need to find my pace with it. I need to find my own style. Yeah. But again, you go into, like, I'm sure you look back at your first one, you go, I hadn't a clue, and then you find yourself. So yes, I've kind of surrendered to that process.
Yeah, I think there's something really interesting about sitting down across the table from someone and asking questions about someone's life and figuring out their mindset and dig a wee bit deeper, because you couldn't really have this in a coffee shop or anywhere else, but under a light and camera and things. But something I really want to touch with you on is new challenges, like new levels, new devils. Is there anything that you have found that you maybe didn't see way back, like challenges that you've maybe faced, or pressure, or some sort of stress or anxiety? Or
I think it's constant if you're a business owner, to be honest with you, particularly if you're growth orientated. So I mean, I probably don't stay steady too long, you know, always thinking of the next thing, or not even the next thing, but like, how can this be improved? How can this have a bigger impact? How can I improve? How can I have a bigger impact? So if you're growth orientated, you're constantly coming against stressors. And that's where resilience comes in. It's a constant challenge, to be honest with you. I've just made peace of the fact that those peaks and valleys exist. When I'm on a peak and I am experiencing business success, I like to mark it, I like to celebrate it, I like to acknowledge it, because you work hard to get there. When I'm in a valley and it's tough, I kind of say to myself, I've been here before. You know, I've been here before, so we'll get out again. But there's I mean, AI is huge. I'm currently looking about how I can integrate that into my business. That's an obstacle. If you choose to view it as an obstacle, or is it an opportunity?
it's perspective.
It's a lot of it's perspective. Don't get me wrong. There is times with, you know, with cash flow, with you know, maybe contracts not being renewed, or you get booked for something and it gets cancelled. There's always stressors, but I think as time goes on, you get much more experience in how you deal with those. I probably would have at the start allowed them to make me feel a certain way, panic, on the back foot, anxiety, and I feel as if because of time and experience, I'm getting a bit more like, okay, I've been here before. Sometimes you just need to let the dust settle and then review it and go, okay, I can solve this problem. And if I can't, I know somebody that can't. And that's where the benefits of networking really come in.
I feel like I was going to ask, how do you combat that? But I feel like I already know the answer. Is it the cold water? And do you think that helps?
So I read a book on leadership years ago, and it said your ability to lead is in direct proportion to how much pressure you can withstand. And it makes sense, because you look at all the really successful people, like, they overcome so many challenges. They are good at performing under pressure. You know, you look at boxing, 12th round, comes into the last minute. Sometimes it's all about mindset as opposed to boxing skill. It's like, I'm refusing to give up. Same in any sport, any business. That sentence always kind of stood out to me. Your ability to lead is in direct proportion to the pressure you can withstand. But what life has shown me is you need a release valve for that pressure. You know, so I'm happy to take on challenges. I'm happy to take on a bit of pressure. But again, with a bit of experience, I know that I need to kind of release the pressure every so often. So that can be a coffee with friends, a walk, nature. You know, nature works for me. I know if I'm getting really stressed, I'll go for a walk up the mountains. There's a forest close to me. I love going and lighting a fire, cooking my lunch, the sea swimming. I find cooking therapeutic. I find reading therapeutic. So it's having almost like that emotional tool belt. If the pressure's building up, how do I release a bit? You know, and it's if a friend Pat describes it as, if you shake a bottle of Coke up, just, you don't open it up straight away, just open it up a bit, let a bit of fizz come out, close it again. And so I just have a few tools in my tool belt that I know if I'm feeling stressed or under pressure, I can just let a wee bit of that tension out.
It's interesting.
It's worked for me. You know what? It really has worked for me. And you can almost, like, if I have some close friends that are in business, I can tell when they're under pressure. You know, you can tell in somebody's behavior, their words, their voice, and it doesn't take much. Sometimes a walk or over a coffee, somebody giving you different perspectives, somebody kind of being a sounding board to you. A walk in Helen's Bay, like, I know sometimes I've went down by myself and I've walked along there and I thought, God, I feel great, you know? So it's all comes back to that self-awareness piece, really, isn't it? How am I feeling in my body? What's my thought process like? Because those two married up are always reflected in your behavior. And if I don't do that, if I don't release the valve, I'm probably going to be the grumpy father to my kids. I'm probably going to be the annoying husband to my wife. I'm probably going to be the friend that doesn't have time for his friends. So, okay, like, the sensible thing for me is to, like, incorporate my own well-being and just allow some of that pressure to come out every so often.
I've got a couple of personal questions.
Yeah.
I kind of want to run by you, but if the 23-year-old Ciaran May, who started in the civil service, was watching this, you know, what do you think he would say?
Probably laugh. Yeah.
Really?
Probably. I think he'd be quite proud, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think he'd be quite proud in terms of, like, I consider myself successful, but not by what the media or society would tell you to be. Like, I class my version of success as I married my childhood sweetheart. Like, me and Stacey's together from, I had just turned 18, she was 17. We've brought two amazing kids into the world, and we've created a very homely home. You know, we're a wee tight-knit family. We do everything together. And I think if the 23-year-old was watching that, he would be very, very happy. Very happy.
What do you think, I guess, would you have any advice for him? For that young man, maybe?
Just, I have always had that tenacity of knuckling down and getting through tough times and working and chipping away. Like, I know that's quite a reflective question, but I think, like, when you're 23, so I'm sitting here near 40 thinking I have this emotional tool belt. He didn't speak like that at 23. He didn't know that, you know? So his emotional tools at 23 was alcohol, probably, because that's all he knew. So I think sometimes you can look back at life and be quite hard on yourself, but you only know what you know.
Yeah.
I kind of look back at that 23-year-old and go, well, he thought he was a man, but really he was just still in that transition period from boyhood to manhood. And it's all about perspective and living in the moment. Like, I probably will look back at myself if I'm 60 and go, Ciaran, what shit are you talking to Michael there? Do you know what I mean? You only think you know what you're talking about. So at 23, I only knew what I knew. And at this age, I only know what I know. And I hope I keep evolving and growing. And that's the beauty of it.
What was success to him back then? Or how has it changed, I guess, through...
Success at 23, I was into fitness. You know, I did a wee bit of running, a wee bit of boxing, and a lot of drinking. So it was, success at 23. Oh, to be fair, actually, at 23, me and Stacey had probably moved into our first house. Like, we got married quite young. We got married at 25.
Did you?
Yeah. So, yeah, I've been lucky. I've always had Stacey by my side, to be fair, which, thank God, you know, because she has been a real guiding force for me. Success at 23 to him probably would have been just holding down a job, having some form of stability, because I didn't always have that. So having Stacey there and having a wage coming in and you know, having those conversations about building a life together would have been. But I think at 23, I never thought about what life would look like at 43, you know? So, yeah.
Funny, I was reading the other day, I actually read that all great leaders, behind their success is a woman. You know, like, that's sort of a pushing factor of why they are as successful as what they are. And it's funny you mentioned that.
Yeah, and I kind of, I mean, I met Stacey probably a difficult period in my life. I met her, we joke about this, I had never been on a foreign holiday as a kid, and I went with a group of boys to go to Gran Canaria for her first time at 18.
Yeah.
She went to Gran Canaria. We didn't know each other, but I lived in Andytown, she lived in Lenadoon, the next house in the state up. She was going on the same holiday, the same flight, the same hotel, the same 2 weeks with her group of friends. And I remember, like, I wanted to go and see the world and meet all these, like, exotic women from different countries. And I met a girl from the next house in the state up. And we've been together ever since. But, like, listen, we've been together for over 20 years. We're married with 2 kids. You have your ups and downs in every relationship, but she has stood by me through thick and thin since we were 17. You know, we've been through a lot together, but I think that's why I consider myself successful, is because of what her and I have built together. Yeah, it's nice.
There's actually a question I asked you last time, and I'm interested to see how this maybe changed. But what's, like, your top 3 skills to become a hugely successful entrepreneur?
Okay, I can't remember what I said the last time, so you can tell me if it's the same. So I've heard this phrase recently. Somebody asked me about my greatest skills, and I think my greatest skills are summed up. They take no talent. Like, they take zero talent. So, like, if I look back, I know I'm good at being consistent. So I will go for the ball every time. I'll show up every day. So I think consistency is a big, massive one. I would say now networking, like be surrounding yourself with really, really good people. Not thinking you have to do it all your own, not being egotistical, that's like you want to do it all your own, and networking and surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you, that know more than you, that can open doors for you, that can challenge you as well.
Yeah.
And probably just a wee bit of courage, just that wee bit of courage and tenacity to think, you know, I'll take the challenge, I'll say yes to something. If you offer me to stand on stage and it's nerve-wracking,
Yeah.
I'm going to have the courage to say yes and work it out.
We've talked about it before off camera and a wee while back, but like you talk about like the golden thread of success and things. Is there a common trait, or is there anything you've seen talking to these people on your podcast, being in the community? Is there something they all have?
Yeah, so I think a lot of them have a vision. Like I think a lot of them have a vision, and it's a vision that not everyone can see, or not everyone agrees to. So, for example, Carl Frampton grew up in Tigers Bay and had a vision of being a world champion. A lot of people said you'll never get out of a working class housing estate in North Belfast. You'll never be on the world stage. You know, Paul Hughes grew up in Lavey and Counterderry. You'll never be a world MMA star because we only play Gaelic here. Mary Peters, you know, women don't play sports in 1972. You're not going to get selected for the Olympics. So a lot of these people have a vision. And a lot of them have been through their own tough times, and they don't let the tough time define them, but they let it drive them. So they get real power from their pain, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they use that to their advantage. I think the opposite of that is letting your story control you, letting your pain control you and drag you back into that cycle of whatever it may be. But I think a lot of these people have been through tough times and use that as a driving force towards their vision. And most importantly, I think they commit to that vision. And what I mean by that is when you commit to the journey, when you commit or surrender to going all in with boxing, with MMA, with rugby, with business, with swimming, with parenthood, with whatever it may be, you commit to the ups and downs. So once you're all in, you're like, I'm going to enjoy the good times and I'm going to work through the bad times. But it's that commitment of like, right, okay,
we're doing this.
Bring it on. I think that's the big thing. That is the big thing with them, you know. And sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, do you think the blueprint's the same for everyone, or do you think it's slightly different?
I think it's the same. I think it's like I'm confident with my goal with the Natural Resilience podcast is to do 100 episodes, and by that stage I'm going to be laughing because the same kind of traits are coming out time and time again, and they already are. You know, the vision piece, they making the most of their tough times as a driving force. That it's almost, there's a guy called Dr. Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey, and he says that all humans follow the same patterns and repetitively through life. So you have like a call to action. You know, you have this like inner knowing, I'm capable of more, I want to be more. You have the tough time where they kind of slay your dragon, which is your own demons, your own self-doubt, your own imposter syndrome. Like you overcome that. You then are rewarded because you now have these new skills, and then you return back and you share that with your village again. So all these people have just been on their own hero's journey, and we all have the opportunity to do that, really.
Is there any books, top 3 books, right? Then you say, I think last time you said like The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard.
Neville Goddard, that's still, I love that book. Well, funny, we've spoke about ups and downs a lot in this podcast. There's a great book called Peaks and Valleys by Spencer Johnson. It's only 100 pages long. And it's written like a parable. So a boy, for example, the book is a $5 on Amazon, the best $5 you'll ever spend. And it's such a powerful book that I've read probably 4 or 5 times. Anytime I feel like a bit of a rut in life, I read this book. And it's only 100 pages and it's written like a story. So it's an easy read. Like teenagers could read it. It's not, but basically it puts life in that perspective of peaks and valleys. And the boy's getting fed up living in a valley. And he's like, I don't care that my friends say you can't go to the peak, I'm going. And he goes up to the peak and he meets an old man, which I think represents his higher self. And the old man says, are you not planning to stay so long because you've nothing prepared? And I think that was it. I remember reading that going, wow, like, you know, you need to prepare for success. What are you bringing up the peak with you? What's in your backpack? Have you got your rations? And it's all around the mindset of getting to those peaks in life, and likewise that valleys are quite normal as well. It's where you learn a lot of lessons, and it's also where you get the drive to go back up again. That's a very powerful book.
Goosebumps there.
It's honestly, it's great. There's another one called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I think again it's just about he breaks down, I suppose, stoicism and how they really cherished resilience, and then looks at modern history and how people went through really tough times but came out much, much stronger. And a third one, probably an easy one again, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, which again, it's written like I love storytelling. It's written in a story, and it's about a young man that travels the world looking for treasure, and at the end of the book he realizes that the treasure is within him the whole time. It's quite powerful.
When did you start reading them? Was that something pretty...
So I've always been an avid reader, like I've always been a reader. And
personal development or anything really? Or
so it's funny, I graduated from Queen's on Thursday.
I've seen that, yeah.
Right, so I did their Emerging Leaders program.
Yeah.
And before that, last year I did their business management program. And then probably the last 10 years I've went and done like neuro-linguistic programming and different things.
Yeah.
I've never been to university before until like last couple of years, like near 40. I didn't go as an 18-year-old. I didn't even get as far as A levels. I left school, or was politely asked to leave in around GCSEs. So I kind of threw my mainstream education away and struggled in school a wee bit because, well, there was things going on at home. My parents got divorced in and around that age of 15, 16, and as the oldest, I didn't really know how to navigate it, so probably rebelled a lot, drunk, stopped going to school, things that again a 16-year-old doesn't know how to deal with. But I remember like in school, I've always been good at like repeating back information, but it bored me. So they were asking me to read certain books, and the Battle of Hastings 1066, and it just bored me. I had no interest in learning this information to repeat it back to you.
Yeah.
Probably have ADD or something if you were going to do a test now, but I remember reading books, early 20s, kind of getting fascinated by like Michael Jordan and like these amazing athletes, reading like Tony Robbins and different books. And I remember I couldn't put them down.
Yeah.
Like instead of going, I'm bored with this, I was like, oh, wow, tell me more.
Yeah.
And I would have got bored quite easily, and then it probably became a bit obsessive on the other side with these. But I've the last 10, 15 years, I've probably read hundreds of books. I found it very therapeutic. I really, really enjoy it. And yeah, I've actually my New Year's resolution last year was to read less books, because I probably fell into the trap of reading them, putting it to the side, reading them, putting them aside. I kind of thought, well, the power of a book really is to allow you to change your behaviour. So I started to read a book and then, okay, well, anything I find very beneficial out of this, I would rather integrate it into my own life and do it. And so if I need to read this book for 6 months and really study it, for me to make one improvement in my life, then it's worth it. And so I started doing books that way, thinking, like, for example, creating a vision in your business. It was like, okay, I'm going to read this book and it makes sense to me that I need to have a very clear vision for my business. I can read this book and say, yeah, it sounds really good, throw it to the side, or else I can read it and use it as a guide to create a vision in my business.
Yeah.
You know, and so it took me a lot longer, but ultimately I was able to extract the knowledge from it and implement it. And they say that like knowledge is only potential power. Like you have to actually do something with the knowledge.
Do you ever reread the book and reread stuff like things like Seamus mentioned, like the power of like repetition?
Yeah, so most of my books, I mean, could never be sold on. Most of them have dog ears, highlighters, pens,
something.
I'll make notes. I'll go back to them, and even as part of the community now, we'll have a book club that goes. So we'll have a weekly. We'll pick a book. At the minute, there's a guy called Pat Dively who came up, a friend of mine, did his book launch, and it's on shadow work. We will study that book together, and once a week we'll come on and like, what did you think of this chapter? So I can now see it from your perception too, and it challenges me, and you see it from but I am a big believer in studying books and actually taking the lessons out of them.
Down to my last three, Ciaran.
Yeah.
This is something, or these last couple of ones we ask on every podcast, but like, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? If you can narrow it down to one thing or something that stands out.
just the fact that you know nothing really. Like I remember somebody saying we're all winging it.
Yeah.
You know, we're all winging it. I think just an acceptance of that, and not to take it too seriously. You know, not to take life too seriously. Like no one really knows what they're doing, do they? You know, no one knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think when you have a real health concern, or somebody very close to you has a health concern, it puts everything into perspective. Like you don't care about anything other than that. If you have, like my friend texts me during the week, his wife's dying, and he's every inch a successful entrepreneur, but I know for a fact he cares about nothing about that other than looking after his wife in her last weeks. So I try not to take things too serious. It's just that you know nothing, just enjoy life.
If one person, say a young person like me or Ross or someone of our age, or maybe a young you, walked up to you on the street, say after leaving here, is there anything you would say to them?
Go for it. You know, go for it. There's no condition of entry. Like this is the thing. If you want to get into business, there's no condition of entry. And I actually think the more you break the mold, the better chance you have. So I think a lot of people, society would show you that a businessman is middle-aged, white, wears a really bad suit, and you know has connections and has money. I'd none of, you know, I started my first business in my 20s, covered in tattoos, grew up in a housing estate. First person in my whole family to ever go self-employed, had no money to do it, had no experience, but I had a real drive. You know, I had a real drive to actually get started. I had a humbleness to think, okay, I'm going to be shit at the start, but at least I'll start and I'll see what kind of unfolds. And I think if you do that, if you realize there's no condition of entry, just be you and run with your idea. And I think choose progression over perfection, which is a powerful thing, is like just choose progression over perfection. And then once you kind of start, like momentum builds momentum. So once you kind of start, if you imagine pushing a car, it's broke down, it's really hard at the start, but then once the wheels start turning, it gets much easier, much easier, much easier. Momentum starts to build. And then I think it's really important once the car starts to kind of go on its own, that you start chatting to people that know how to drive cars really fast.
One more for you.
Yeah.
What's next for Ciaran May?
More of the same.
Yeah.
More of the same. As I said, I'm not talented. I'm not, you know, I'm just consistent. So it's more of the same. Just keep showing up every day. Keep being disciplined. Keep being consistent. Keep serving the community. Keep supporting them. And I truly believe in that law of karma. What you put out is what you get back. So I know if I serve these people really well, it comes back tenfold.
Yeah.
It really does. For me, that's natural resilience. For me, Ciaran May as a person, I want to continue. I want to get healthier. I want to get to my 40th next year, kind of, you know, peak mental, physical, and emotional health. I want to kind of be a good example to my son as a 40-year-old. And in terms of like the corporate and public speaking work, I'm doing TEDx for the first time in June, and I'm hoping that acts as a springboard to maybe get, you know, bigger talks and bigger companies throughout the UK and Ireland, and maybe even further afield.
It's pretty nuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doing TEDx and all speaking gigs, and to be honest, man, that's all I have. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to touch on when you're here? Anything you want to say?
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, if there's any way we can help you, you know, just help any way we can. We're happy to help. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That has been all from the official Young Hunger podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.